reason why TikTok was being banned is because it's Chinese owned. However, the number one most downloaded app during that time was another Chinese app. I'm like, what is going on here?
I understand the ban from the national security perspective, but I think there's political reasons behind this, because when the app went dark, Meta and Facebook had all these things lined up to accommodate these users that might leave TikTok. Every social media platform has a lifespan. It lives and it dies. And so if you're not thinking about the future and building products for young people, you're going to miss an opportunity.
How can people take advantage of what potentially might be happening in the next 4 years? What will be critical for them to have entrepreneurial success?
I mean, I'm gonna be a little cynical, but
Let's get this money. Yours dollar bills, getting this on out. Let's get this money. 1 year in, better know I'm on it.
What's cracking, everybody? Money Smart Guy, Matt Sapaula here. Helium to you from Dallas, Texas. And once again, we have another 7-Figure Squad podcast. And today, our guest is redefining the digital economy, empowering creators to own their value in ways the industry never thought possible. He's a visionary entrepreneur, a tech innovator, and the CEO of Fanbase, the platform that's revolutionizing how content creators monetize their talent. But that's not all. He's also a music producer, a thought leader, and a son of the legendary soul icon, the late, great Isaac Hayes. Yes, absolutely, that Isaac Hayes. From creating beats to building a business that bridges the gap between creativity and financial independence, Isaac Hayes III is here to share his journey, his insights, and his mission to empower the next generation of creators. So Isaac Hayes III, welcome to the 7-Figure Squad podcast.
thank you for having me, man. Glad to be here.
100%, man. So I got to ask off the top of the bat, what is your favorite song of Pop's? Of all the songs he's ever made, what is your number one, maybe 1, 2, and 3? What would that be?
There are a couple you haven't heard,
Okay,
because they're unreleased. There are a couple that are unreleased. There's one called "What Can I Tell Her?" It's really good, that no one's ever heard before. So
Wow.
I love that one. But "Walk On By" is probably one of my favorites.
Yeah.
From my dad.
Gotcha. Of course. My personal favorite, I'm from Chicago. Shaft, baby. You know?
Of course.
Of course.
Absolutely.
You know? But so what was it like for you growing up? Since you're, one of the most notable things for you here is one of the first Black men tech entrepreneurs to raise $10 million in regulation crowdfunding. So what is it like for you to have that conversation with your siblings, with your inspirations growing up? What was that like?
About being an entrepreneur? Yeah. Oh man, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a baby. I was the kind of kid, I've said before, that didn't like to really wait to get money. So I would do things like help people move and mow the lawn and clean pools and do those kinds of things so I could get the money to buy the things that I wanted. And so I've always been like that kind of guy. And I had a job for high school, and then I worked a 9 to 5 right out of high school before I decided I really wanted to jump in the music business. So I've always been about my money. And I think I've been driven to kind of find my way in my own path to earn income just at my speed and on my terms.
What inspired you to be a tech entrepreneur?
I didn't plan on it. I'll tell you that much. It happened out of the blue when I saw Creator going viral for dancing in a Spider-Man costume. And I think that made me just shout out to him and say, wow, somebody from Memphis, he was from Memphis, Tennessee,
okay,
and just like gave him a congrats. And he reached back and asked me to manage him as a content creator. I was like, I don't manage content creators, but I understand why he needed management, because he was going viral. Yeah. He was trying to figure out, how can I make money? How do I capitalize on this opportunity? And I left that conversation like, we need an app where people can subscribe to people the same way that we subscribe to Netflix, with a couple clicks of a button, instantaneous, and you're subscribing to content that are behind paywalls. And at the time, the only platforms that I saw that did anything similar to what I had an idea was Patreon and OnlyFans. But the big difference between those platforms is you had to use a credit card.
Okay.
And I wanted to use the functionality that was inside an iPhone. So the same way that you subscribe to Spotify or purchase a game or an app.
Apple stores.
And so that is really the genesis behind building Fanbase.
Interesting. It was, as we stay on your dad real quick, was there anything that your father did in terms of inspiring? What some of the lessons maybe you have gleaned from your father that you observed him doing? What's one of your biggest takeaways from your dad's? Because he's got so many hits. He marketed himself so well. He created a product that everybody wanted to talk about and hear about. So is there anything that Pops handed on to you?
His work ethic. You know, when my father passed away, probably about 5 years after he passed away, I got an opportunity to go in the vault and see all the music that he had never released.
Wow.
And when I tell you, it's probably 700 or so masters that existed. And I remember looking at some of these dates and like, oh, this is like right before I was born, or this is like, you
Yeah.
know, just days and days of recording. And I remember myself as a producer, it kind of brought me back to when I was producing music, how I would have a hard drive full of beats that I was working on, but it wouldn't be a holiday that I wasn't in the studio. I don't care if it's Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July, Halloween, Thanksgiving. I was always in the studio making records. And then some of the struggles that my father had in owning his copyright and ownership really put me on the path of really caring about ownership. So I've always been ownership driven. If I can't own it, I don't necessarily want to do business. You know, and that was tough for me in the music industry, but it led me to licensing my music, because then again, I wasn't selling my music, I was owning it. And so I started licensing my music for TV and film. And then that just gave me the wherewithal to understand exactly how important ownership is. And then that translates to how important it is that all these amazing people out here in the world that are creating content and creating videos, and they don't really, you know, get able to monetize their content or own it. And so it kind of synced together. So I take those lessons of ownership and hard work into what I'm doing with Fanbase.
So did your father, what about, have you considered releasing some of those unreleased masters? Is that a potential possibility? I don't know if that's.
Oh yeah. We have a really good partnership with a company called Primary Wave.
Okay.
There's a lot in store.
Okay, cool.
For Isaac Hayes.
That's great.
Moving forward, a lot of great things like music and
Yeah.
And, you know, we've been talking about documentaries and feature films and all these other things that's somewhere down the roadmap. But yeah, it's exciting times for Isaac Hayes.
You've got, from what I understand, 11 siblings.
Yes.
So if there was a leaders bulletin right now of siblings of, for example, how Coach Prime, I interviewed Coach Prime Sanders at one of our events, and he said there's a leaders bulletin for all the kids based on their productivity and impact and difference making that they're making with whatever they're doing. If there was a leaders bulletin right now, would you say you're probably at the top of leaders bulletin amongst your siblings? Not to create any pressure, but where would you? You would be up there.
I'm up there.
Yeah.
I'm definitely one of them ones.
where do you fall in the mix of the 11?
I am actually the third from the youngest.
Wow. No kidding.
So I have a little brother that's 18 years old at Morehouse as a freshman.
Dude, that's great.
That's surreal.
So the genesis of this conversation is I discovered you because of what's going on with TikTok. And people are talking about rising apps, and people consider Fanbase. Because I was kind of annoyed. The reason why TikTok was being banned is because it's Chinese owned. However, the number one most downloaded app during that time of the transfer, people think about transfer content from TikTok and going to the different app, was another Chinese app. I'm like, what is going on here? But I saw Fanbase start going like this, like, what is Fanbase? Who is Fanbase? And I was watching your interviews, and I'm like, phenomenal. So can you kind of cast your perspective of what happened and what is happening with TikTok, that other Chinese app, and where Fanbase fits in the mix?
Well, I mean, honestly, I understand the ban from the national security perspective.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that the content creators and the people that use TikTok are tied up in this mess, and that it got so far as where they had to actually shut down the platform. But I think there's a little bit more, I don't know, political reasons behind this, because some of the things that I saw Meta doing in between the time that the Supreme Court heard the case and ruled on the case, Meta did a lot of strange things, right? They ended their DEI practices. They got rid of fact checking, moved it to Texas. Meta donated $1 million to Trump's inaugural campaign. Mark went on the Joe Rogan podcast and kind of walked back some of the things about inclusivity and diversity and stuff like that. And then when the app went dark, it was just surprising that Meta and Facebook had all these things lined up to accommodate these users that might leave TikTok, to the point that a TikTok logo was on your Facebook page and say, put your TikTok link on your Facebook page. And now they have an application coming out that kind of edits, similar to CapCut, which is a TikTok product.
Yeah, same with
So
IG.
I
It's
think
called
that there
edits.
was,
Called something called edits, right?
yeah, I think there was some sort of posturing made
Yeah.
to kind of eliminate the app. And I don't think it's done, because, I think that these 75 days that are here are to give Meta and enough time to emulate TikTok as much as they can. So if the app goes away, those users can come to Instagram and Facebook, because it won't be the same. I mean, the ByteDance has said in time and time again that they're not going to sell TikTok with the current algorithm. So if anybody purchases TikTok, they're going to buy it without the algorithm, which is basically like the secret sauce.
For sure.
So you'll have a platform with users, but no real true algorithm that keeps everybody engaged on the platform. As far as Red Note, I think it was just a protest to the people that love TikTok, saying we're going to download another Chinese app to do that. Where we came in is I developed something called content migration. So you can actually migrate your content from TikTok or Instagram over to your Fanbase.
Is that still working?
So it takes your,
Is that migration still working from TikTok?
Yeah,
It is. Okay.
it does. It takes you can take your your photos, your videos, your captions, and your content information and profile picture, and import it over to your Fanbase page. So it gives you a fresh start. You're not starting from scratch. You're just moving stuff over. And I think that became very, very popular, to the point that we've migrated more than 7.7 million pieces of content in the last week alone. 75,000 plus people have migrated their content over. And we've had, I think, over 600,000 new users join the platform in the last week and a half. So it's been very, very busy over at the Fanbase office. But I think it's just timing is everything. We've been working for this moment for a very, very long time. And we learn from it. We'll continue to grow from it. And we'll be ready to continue to accept the community that wants to come and build on Fanbase.
I love it because, a large part about creating something big is timing. And when something happens in the world and people are reacting to it, you're just simply positioning yourself. And what a beautiful spot to put Fanbase in. One thing you said on an interview, I was watching one of your interviews, I can't remember who it was, but you said in an interview that if you being the first Black tech entrepreneur raised $10 million, one thing that annoyed me is thinking that Fanbase would be for just the Black community. Like remember Black Planet back in the day? Right? That's going back. Like MySpace. Like, can you dispel the myth that Fanbase is not just a Black app for Black creators?
Well, I think the media has a way sometimes of minimizing the impact of Black business by saying that if it's built by someone Black, it's assumed to be for Black people, but business is built by white people or Asian people, Latino people, are for all people. And so that's the part about that I have to come very, very clear when I do media conversations, podcasts, and say Fanbase is not just a Black app. I just happen to be a Black founder, but I built the platform for the entire planet. I wouldn't put it in 190 countries and territories on iOS and Android if I just wanted Black people to use the platform. In fact, true disruption is permeating the globe with an idea of giving everybody the ability to monetize their content around the planet and giving them reach that these other platforms don't do. So that is my, if you're not pissing people off, you're not doing something right. And so I'm here to piss some people off with what we're doing with Fanbase.
For sure. I mean, if you guys following him on Instagram, like every other post is like, we reached another milestone. We reached another milestone. Every time on the algorithm, brother, we reached another milestone, which is awesome. Keep reaching those milestones, man. More power to you. However, can I push back a little bit on that point? Respectfully.
Absolutely.
So who has really created that narrative of, Black businesses and this and that? Because by the way, I love supporting any business. I was in Chicago. I'm born and raised in Chicago. I'm Filipino by ethnic background, but I was raised in a Black, Latino, Italian type of neighborhood. I was the only Asian Filipino kid around. And I never really fit in. But when it came time for me to be in business, people asked, how come the Filipino community doesn't say you're a top Filipino entrepreneur? For me, I could care less if I was a top Filipino entrepreneur. I just want to be a top entrepreneur. So where has this, where do you think this phraseology or that we just saw minimizing came in terms of, Black business owners, Latino business owners, Asian business owners. I almost kind of find that personally for me a little annoying because I want people to be the best product or service available, and people do business with you for that reason, not just because you are Black or Latino or Asian, etc.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, I've had conversations and interviews where I'm very specific about the fact that Fanbase is a platform for every person. But when the headline comes out, it's Isaac Hayes III has built a platform for Black creators. And I'm like, guys,
I got you.
that's not what I said.
Gotcha.
And it's a little frustrating when people do that, and I think sometimes it is to minimize the impact of what we're doing. Because if you make people feel like everybody else feel like they're not wanted, then they'll stay away.
Yeah.
But if you build a product and you're welcoming everyone, then that can pose a problem to people that are in the space that's saying, hey, look, this guy has built something for every single person on the planet.
Yeah.
And understanding the impact that culture has on social media and technology, you're kind of connecting the two. You're taking the tech and the culture and putting it under one umbrella, where systemically there's been this exploitative relationship between culture and technology, where culture gives everything to the technological platforms, right? And these platforms are worth billions of dollars. And then when it comes time to really stand up for the community, they get rid of programs and get rid of DEI and shy away from that. But anytime we're welcome to put our dances, our skits, our music all over these platforms. And so for me, I think that part about being Black is important because I understand the economic engine of social media is primarily young people and Black culture. And so we have to, own infrastructures, because in our community systemically, we've been either robbed from those things, had, our patents, ideas stolen. There's a myriad of amazing, incredible inventors that have come along,
Absolutely, 100%. So let's talk about that right quick. Speaking of Trump, how do you think his policies affecting development and deployment of AI technologies is going to help AI or hurt business or just the business world in general in the next few years? Throughout his presidency, his policies are going to, is it a net positive for you, or is it a net negative?
I mean, I'm a person that's not going to reject AI. In fact, we use AI in Fanbase. We understand how powerful it is. I don't have a problem leaning into that because it's something that the rest of the globe is going to lean into as well. So getting behind AI and putting money behind it and really trying to maximize the benefits that it can be. I actually used AI right before this conversation. I was surprised at what I was able to ask AI and do.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is like, I couldn't have done this like a couple of years ago. And it just gave me an answer that I was looking for, very, very detailed and specific about something that I needed to know about it, like a camera, something very technical. And I was like, wow, I didn't have to open up a manual. It gave me the way to do it. So we got to lean into AI. I don't think we can shy away from that. So the president's decision to lean into AI, I think is a positive decision.
Joint venture investing up to $500 billion for infrastructure with OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. So as you mentioned earlier too, as well, fast evolving AI in Texas, where I am at right here in Dallas. It's a pretty interesting evolution. They got Wall Street coming down to Dallas, Texas. They're calling it Y'all Street. It's not Wall Street. It's Y'all Street. So a lot of infrastructure going at that in terms of finance. So, in your opinion, what steps do you think can be taken to make sure AI and its development and the next wave of social media to make it equitable and benefits both Black and brown communities?
Well, I mean, the data sets are really important, right? Training models. Those training models have not always done very, very well in identifying people of color, sometimes stereotypical, sometimes confusing, people that look alike and so on and so forth. So I think there has to be an intention about making sure that you're creating, responsible AI models that don't put people in jeopardy or harm's way from what they're doing. So I think there's something that has to be done about that. Now, will that happen? I'm not sure. I don't know. But we have an opportunity to do that as we delve into AI because I'm a Black founder and I want to make sure that all people are represented in every shade and hue and that we get that information right so that we're able to provide, AI in a way to users that benefits them, that does not stereotype them or, typecast them in ways that can be harmful.
And what do you think? What are some of the? I've got a buddy here in Dallas. He's a plumber, and he was on the number one and number two of Uncle Tom. I don't know if you've seen that document, Uncle Tom. And he's a plumber, and he shares and educates the Black community, and has done very well on Instagram in terms of educating people what they don't know. So what industries do you think are poised to grow under Trump's economic policies, and what do you foresee for the Black and brown communities to really take advantage and get ahead of it, like yourself with tech? How do you think people can take advantage of it and get in front of it?
I think we absolutely have to lean into tech because it's, especially in the Black community, because if not, we're going to get left behind. You have to lean into that type of culture. I think over the next 4 years, I think AI in itself, you just got to be responsible with it. I always say in anything that we build at Fanbase, I always say you got to take it to heaven before you take it to hell. So you got to understand, like, you actually take it to hell before you take it to heaven. I'm sorry. So you got to understand, like, what are the worst things that we could do when we build this? Like, how can people abuse this in ways, and trying to figure out ways to understand, because people are going to
Yeah.
they're going to do all sorts of things. And so there's a responsibility to understand the impact that AI can have and the things that it can be dangerous, but the amazing amount of things that it can do by way of just problem solving and healthcare and things like that. So I think there's a responsibility to do that. I expect that, AI, especially with the popularity and the market potential and monetization and revenue potential, that is going to be something that everybody's going to have to use AI. It's like AI is, you're going to have AI as part of you, like you have fingerprints. It's just going to be part of what you do as a human being moving forward. And so I think they'll find ways to maximize off capitalizing that in a way.
Do you think, in your opinion, do you think there's a lot of unnecessary government spending and just foolish ways that the federal government has been handling its finance? Because you just mentioned a project. I was reading this. There was like a $6 million study to capture your butt print on a toilet seat. What a foolish thing to research, right? And if that's so, is there more? Like, for example, the Department of Agriculture, they discovered that 6% of the office space for the Department of Agriculture is really used. Could seat 4,700 people, but only 464 people are actually there. So 95, 96% of it is just wasted. What would you like to see if they find unnecessary government spending in certain areas and it's just wasteful? Where would you like to see some of that money being redirected?
I think there's a lot of things that are happening in America. I think infrastructure, for one. And I think
like roads and highways and hospitals and schools. Okay.
On top of that, and then we have a homelessness issue in this country.
Yeah, for sure.
That I think we need to address as well. And I figure, there's a lot of, and I think people don't understand sometimes why money is spent the way that it is, but it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of wasteful spending sometimes, I think, in these areas. And so if that money can be allocated to help people that really need it in ways, but I'm not in charge of what, how they're going to decide to use their money. And I think the current administration has set forth an agenda that they're very specific about, and I think they'll stick to that plan. So
okay.
I don't know how that will affect people of color, people like me, but I know that they're going to stick to their plan, and whether that government spending, those cuts will go towards helping every American or just specific Americans, that's yet to be seen.
Well, I'll tell you this, where I'm from in Chicago, people are applauding the fact that illegal immigration, something being said about it, because illegal immigration has been taking away jobs and opportunities and money from people that are actually citizens of our country and actually paying taxes. Now, when you're looking at, talk about raising money, capital, you're a tech entrepreneur, right? And my viewers on my show are either aspiring entrepreneurs or they're going from $1 million company to a $10 million company to a $100 million company, et cetera. What areas of fiscal spending for a CEO, especially when it comes to tech, where is that money? Where do you smartly invest that money into the infrastructure of your particular company? Not the infrastructure of our company we were talking previously, but infrastructure, operations. Where does one smartly, if one's going to grow today like you have, where are people smartly investing money with inside the company?
Well, for us, I think it's given us longevity. We have a phenomenal CFO. And I love the fact that we stay true to who we are. If what we spend does not affect retention, growth, or revenue, we just don't do it. And a lot of times in tech companies, when you get capital, you want to look amazing. You want the office to look nice. You want to throw parties. You want it to make everything look larger than life. But for us, we're just honest in the fact that that doesn't help Fanbase grow. What helps Fanbase grow is community.
Yep.
And with community, you got to have retention. You got to have user growth. You got to have revenue. And it takes a lot longer to build community in that way. So for us, I think sticking to the core of what really makes your business sustainable is what you should do. Don't fall into the traps of, well, we might have to throw a lavish party or we might have to sponsor an event, because, the realistic answer is, I think now in development costs or things like that. So if someone says, hey, Isaac, there's an opportunity to sponsor a dinner at All-Star Weekend. Okay. How much? $50,000. Okay. Well, how many people are going to attend? It's just going to be 12 people, but they're going to be celebrities. Okay. $50,000 is like enough to have 2 or 3 developers for an entire year that I can speed up the development of something. So the decisions are easy to make. It's a no, because it's not that $50,000 might get us some looks, but it's not going to affect the bottom line of what we're building as a company. So when you're really spending your capital and doing what you need to do, I think you stick to what's really going to continue to give your platform longevity. And it's given us longevity from other platforms that have raised 3 or 4 times as much money as we've raised. There's been platforms that have raised 35, 40, 45, $50 million, and they're out of business in 18 months because they threw the parties. They didn't really stick to the thing about really, making sure that they were focusing on what gives the platform sustainability, and they burn through cash, and we don't do that.
Got it. Hey, man, I've downloaded Fanbase. I posted my first one, so I'm looking forward to this migration happen to myself. Where do you think, for example, if you were standing in front of Shark Tank right now, you're in front of Damon John, you're in front of Mark Cuban, etc. How would Isaac Hayes III, the CEO of Fanbase, pitch Fanbase?
I would say that no. First thing I would say is every social media platform has a lifespan. It lives and it dies. And to assume that platforms like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok will be forever is foolish. And kids are always going to want to be on apps that their parents are not on. And so if you're not thinking about the future and building products for young people, you're going to miss an opportunity to do so. And in fact, we're learning that social media is the new television, and that kids are spending way more time scrolling on their phones, consuming content than traditional television. In fact, only 15% of young people under the age of 25 watch TV. But when you get up to 35 years and above, 45% of them watch television. So the sustainability of platforms and streaming services like Netflix and Hulu and all these things, the young kids are not really into that. They're into watching YouTube and they're on social media, and media becomes this experiential thing. They just don't want to watch programs anymore. They want to chat with their friends while they do it. They want to exchange gifts. They want to do all these things that are immersive. And so with Fanbase, we represent the next generation of what social media platforms offer. We don't limit visibility, let you monetize from day one. And I think that's very, very specific. And what I would also say is subscriptions are coming, right? The ability for users around the planet to monetize through in-app purchase, peer-to-peer subscription, very, very fast. There's no friction now. There's no credit card, CVV address, and people wanting to pay for what they want in real time. Those are the things that I keep saying are going to be part of the future. And if you're not participating in that, you're going to get left behind. And so a platform like Fanbase, which is actually, standing amongst giants, always compared to platforms like TikTok and Instagram, when we've raised a fraction of the capital, is the biggest compliment in the world, because we're right in position to be able to capture that market.
Awesome. Like the bigger, like for example, like Spotify. I remember they signed Rogan to $100 million contract. These other platforms, they will aggregate the influencers to come on. Don't go on YouTube anymore. Come to our platform, etc. Is that a strategy of a Fanbase? Is that a way for you to get more influencers down the road to get them to start using Fanbase more?
I think it's different because of where Spotify is positioned, because they have community. They spent years building community, and we're into community building. That might be a conversation for a different time, but I always say, like, celebrities don't make apps, communities do. And so spending money, because celebrities got a celebrity. They got to go do what makes them famous. So they can't sit on an app all day long, but the rest of the planet collectively wants to build community with their friends and their family and other people around that are like-minded and have similar interests. And so I think we focus on community building first. And so that is a process, again, like I said, that takes a long time to really start to build a community that understands that. Now, once that community is there, then you can mix in the celebrities that add to that and, hyper energize the creativity and the fun and what's going on the platform. But I think we haven't gone down that path yet because, again, platforms that have come and gone, I've seen them spend money luring, celebrities, even billion-dollar companies. Like, I'll give a prime example with Amazon. They had a platform called AMP. You might even remember AMP. Mm-hmm. It was a radio station type of platform. But I was learning about deals that they had with Hollywood Unlocked and Joe Budden and Candy Burris and Youngboy and Nicki Minaj and all these people that they were paying to create content on their platform, and it didn't stick. And that's because once the celebrity's gone, the people leave. And so you have to have something that people want to be there without famous people being there. So that's why we focus on building community, because our users are more important to us than celebrities 24 hours a day. And I'll always say that because they're the ones that have gotten us here, and they're the ones that are continue to allow us to grow.
What's the current numbers now, Isaac, in terms of users on Fanbase right now, and how many are growing on a daily basis?
So we have about 1.3 million users on the platform. And because of this surge, our MAU is shot up to almost like 600,000.
Wow.
So it's a lot of people that are engaging in the platform and using it. And we have 6, core content formats that you can post in. So you can do regular posting, which is photos and videos. We have stories, we have live, we have audio chat, we have short form video, which people would call TikTok or Reels. We call them flicks.
Okay.
And we have long form content up to 2 hours that you would probably consider something like YouTube, and we call that Fanbase Plus. And so with these 6 content formats, people are finding their way in what I call like this multiverse of media, and they're finding the spots on the platform that they really enjoy. So there are people that really like TikTok that just stay in flicks, and there are people that love Clubhouse that just use the audio feature. And so I love that because it gives us the ability to build an everything app, but still allow people to have the places that they want to be uninterrupted and consume content in a way that they love to consume content.
It reminds me of Lifetime Fitness. I've got different gym memberships, and so whereas Lifetime Fitness, you just put it all together. You got yoga, you got strength classes, you got CrossFit-like classes, you got cycle class, and then you got awesome weights. This kind of good, and that's why it's Lifetime Fitness growing, dominating the market. And my trainer's like, hey, listen, that's why we're putting a lot of gyms out of business. What's your favorite feature? I mean, you're the creator, you're the guy, that put behind it. What is your favorite feature of your own app?
It changes from time to time. Right now, my favorite feature is Watch Party.
What's that?
Which is something that we've built inside of Fanbase Audio. And so that gives the ability for the user to pin a YouTube video to the top of the audio room and play that video with an audience of people and watching in real time. So you could take a TV show, a podcast, any type of video, even a live stream from a video game, pin it to the top of your audio room, and then watch it and have commentary with your friends. And that's fun because, again, people want to experience television and media together. They just don't want to sit on the couch by themselves and watch a show. Yeah. They can watch it with strangers or friends around the world that have a chat room and have something to say about it. So it's this more experiential version of what audio is. And no other audio platform has really done this. And those are the things that I take pride in, because I'm like, we're over here doing things like, well, how come they didn't think to do this? And I understand how innovative Fanbase is. And so I see the times where people borrow, or I would say steal, our ideas. But I think it's a feather in my cap because I got a million more. And when we raise the amount of capital that they have, I don't think that it'll be a question that will be very, very competitive against these platforms. So Watch Party is my favorite feature.
How are you going to investors on your end? Obviously, you've got your own secret sauce. I don't expect you to divulge it, but how do you show an investor why it's, for example, if all of us putting $500 into it, $1,000, what's the minimum, $499 to get involved as an investor?
$399.
I stand corrected. So what's the pitch for the typical investor? What's the future? I don't know. Of course, people are excited because they have ownership in this thing, whereas Facebook and Instagram, they may not ever had that. YouTube, they've never had that. So what's the excitement for an investor to be investing in Fanbase?
I think the secret sauce for us, and I had this conversation before because I'm very, very big on equity crowdfunding. I love it. I think it gives the opportunity for people to circumvent potential discrimination from either VCs or banks. That people want to fund their businesses.
True. Yeah.
So they can
Yeah.
just like, I can get it from my community. If
Yeah.
I need $100,000 to start my business, I don't have to go to a bank or an angel investor. I can get that from, maybe 400 people,
Or my buddies at
like
Stanford or something like that, right?
yes,
I get it.
right. Those
Yep.
relationships. And so what I think is very key about that is that I think that in doing so, especially with a social media platform, it's just specific to what we do. I think our success comes number one. Nothing speaks better for fan base than the app itself. I give the credit to the development team, the product that we built, because it's something that if you're going to invest in something, if I said, hey, I want you to invest in tomato juice, you might not be able to taste it. You might not be able, you don't know the scope of it, but when you can download an app, touch it, play with it, assess it with your own eyes, and then hold it up to platforms like Instagram and TikTok and say, hey, this is pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if these guys really get some capital, there's a shot there. And so I think that's what gives fan base an advantage. I'm a great, spokesman about the passion for creators and understanding how ownership is extremely important. But I still think I wouldn't be able to raise this money if I had fan base on some PDFs,
Right.
trying to show. I think it's since I spent my own money. I spent $200,000 of my own money to build the MVP of Fanbase, and I think that was a very necessary step. And it was a risk. I spent money I didn't have to spend, but I wanted people to be able to touch it in something that was tangible, because that's how you sell a product, as opposed to an idea of a product. Taking that extra step to actually build a product.
Right.
And so having something that's tangible that people can touch and use and assess themselves and say, hey, these guys have only raised like maybe $17 million, but these guys over here raised 1.5 billion.
Yep.
And it's like,
Yep.
if I had to compare Instagram and Fanbase and TikTok, I would say if they're a 10, Fanbase is at a 6 or a 7. So you understand? So I think
Sure.
that really helps us. And then the market opportunity for people to actually have a real shot at ownership of a tech company.
Yep.
Because a lot of times, all this stuff was like not allowed because of
Yeah.
accredited investor rules. But, you see these apps go from, 0 to 100 in speed and growth, and they'll be worth billions and billions of dollars. But we never got a phone call for that,
Yeah.
right? Nobody ever hit you and says, hey man, they're starting this thing called Uber, and all they need is $500,000. Do you have like $500? You and 10 of your friends can get in at $5,000. And then that $5,000, which is really invested by one angel, right? One early investor named Orrin Michaels, that $5,000 turned into $24 million. So I would love the opportunity to put my $500 into a company and maybe possibly turn it into $2.4 million. We never get that, but we will see commercials for the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
We will see commercials to go to Vegas. We will see commercials to gamble our money away, but no one's trying to send us down the path of investing. And it is limited risk, but it's not, crazy that, $250, $400 people spend on stuff like that you can actually have a shot at sitting on a cap table of a real tech company.
I'm so glad you said that. I mean, the black and brown community, they're great consumers in America, but some of the worst savers in America due to a lot of lack of financial literacy. And sometimes the way people just grow up, they're a socioeconomic type of upbringing. So would you share your thoughts on that? Shed some light on the importance of financial literacy and entrepreneurship in the black and brown community, and making sure that we're just not buying. For example, why are we buying from things that we don't sell ourselves? Right? Like, I like to make sure if I'm going to buy something, well, I want to create a company that sells what I buy. So therefore, people like myself that buy that same product, I can profit from that cash flow, that revenue. So what would you say to that?
Well, I talk about something all the time that it's a little, I don't know, I'm not going to say controversial, but one of the things for the black community, I think is different, is that the black community in the United States of America is a generation one culture. We're the youngest and most influential culture group on earth. And we have to be mindful of giving our culture away without creating infrastructure. And for that very reason is because everywhere else that people come from on the planet, I don't care if you come from Germany, I don't care if you come from Japan or Jamaica, there's a Jamaica to go back to, right? So you can come to the United States and develop all that. There's language, there's customs, there's all these things. So in America, what I noticed even in Atlanta is that their communities of people, there's a huge Korean community, there's a huge Latino community. And what I notice is language is what builds an economy. So since they don't speak the language, they have to have a Latino bank, a Latino doctor, Latino school, Latino everything, right? Korean everything. So that money stays in your
Yes.
community. As a black person in America, when white community speaks English and you speak English and you don't have your own language, you're down there at the bottom.
Yeah.
So the necessity to have your own language to cycle your own, wealth through is very, very important. And black people don't have that because we were brought here and then we learned the language of English. So I think that's important that we have to be mindful because we're creating massive billion-dollar industries for Black culture being put into things. When I say Black culture, I have a bottle of water sitting next to me. Black culture is like water, and it's an extremely valuable, potent, magical thing, right? But it does require an infrastructure. So when you take Black culture and you put it inside of a shoe, you get a Jordan or you get Yeezy, these multi-billion-dollar companies, right? When you take Black culture and put it inside the music industry, you get hip hop, multi-billion-dollar. When you took Black culture and put it in two turntables in a mixer, you get what Grandmaster Flash did, and you get this global DJ culture. But again, all these industries we don't own. So I'm more speaking about the ownership of infrastructure. So as we come up with the ideas, how can we own these ideas as opposed to give them away, or not think about building the infrastructure first? So I'm infrastructure. So as far as financial literacy, ownership, money, ideas, and ownership are really what business is about. So I focus more on, before we go out here and show everybody the cool thing that we can do, let's see if we can own this market before we do, because whoever owns the market is going to make all the money. And you've seen that in TV and film, and especially with social media, these platforms. Facebook is a $1.5 trillion company. ByteDance is a $300 billion company. TikTok is probably a half of that at $150 billion, $200 billion. And we know that culture and language and music contribute heavily to the trends that set those platforms and make them fun, but we don't own them. So I think that part, ownership, is just what we have to teach, in our community extremely early on.
Isaac, are you familiar with the Uncle Nearest story?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's a perfect example.
100%.
Uncle Nearest never owned the infrastructure of Jack Daniels, and to and through the building after the Civil War, as an emancipated slave, people don't realize they were drinking Jack Daniels whiskey using an African charcoal distilling process. And now Fawn Weaver is exposing that story. She couldn't fall asleep after a trip to Singapore, reading about that story. So now she's created Uncle Nearest whiskey, and she says you got to own the patents, you got to own the trademarks. And she went out, brother. She went out to France, because she's expanded now to cognac, from whiskey to now to cognac. She went out to Cognac, France, and Fawn Weaver purchased the largest cognac vineyard in all of France. So the largest cognac vineyard in France is owned by an American Black woman.
Incredible.
CEO of the $1.1 billion company. So that's exactly what you're talking about. And we were talking about, before you shut the camera, I'd love to make the connection. She's going to be at our event in Atlanta. I'd love to make the connection for you and her. I think she'd be a great content creator for you on Fanbase.
Yeah, I would really love the story too, of how she also didn't raise her money from VC.
That's right.
She saw that Black founders were getting voted out of their companies, and she didn't know why. So she said until she figured that out, she was going to raise money independent of them. And I understand those stories because I had a lot of mentors in this process that taught me about tech, but a lot of them were founders that were Black that were voted out of their companies. And so when someone like me, I guess my generational trauma is seeing my dad lose the rights to his music. So the first thing that I did, I trademarked the name Fanbase. I created 2 classes of stock in the company, voting and non-voting, and I'm the only one that owns voting shares. So the only other security that's offered is common stock to people that want to invest, which is totally fine and which is normal that you're along for the ride. But I'm making sure that I position myself that in the same way that Fawn does, that you own the land, you own the patents, you own the trademarks, you own what no one can take from you, which are her words. And so I echo that sentiment 100%.
Yeah, my sister was, they're friends because they met at a church retreat. And my sister was the first one to get invested into Uncle Nearest. I came on later. But just to see what she's done with that company in the last, since 2018, 7, 8 years going on. I want to ask you this question too as well. So if I'm a content creator, let's say I'm Fawn Weaver, I want to sell my whiskey. I want eyeballs on my brand. Right, I'm a musician. I'm an entrepreneur. I want eyeballs to my lead pages, my funnels, whatever. How do I? What's the different method of creating content on Fanbase? Is there a special algorithm that's there? And so, how do they take full advantage of the Fanbase experience?
I think there's a bit of something that I call social rehab. Every person has to go through social rehab. I'm telling you why.
I'm taking notes.
Here's why, though. Social media spent a really good time over the last 20 years convincing people that their content doesn't have any value. right? And it was all fun and games when it was just me taking, us taking pictures of our food, right? That didn't cost anything. But I'm sitting talking to you right now. You got a podcast studio, you got equipment, you got microphones. There are people buying ring lights and cameras, and they're investing thousands and thousands of dollars into creating content, and they're still giving it away for free. So I say to me and you, if me and you were to start a business today, let's say a bakery, right? And I would say, hey, look, if me and you had to give away the donuts and the muffins for free until somebody walked in and said, this is the best muffin ever, and shared it all over social media, we'd go out of business. And so you got to treat your content the same way. Even for podcasting, I know so many people that start podcasts and they're so comfortable just creating this free audio, situation that they want to give away. But I'm like, you can still give stuff away, but you also have to set yourself up for people to support you, because I think a lot of people are afraid of rejection, that they're afraid to even give people the opportunity to support them. And they're cutting off the opportunity to do that. So if I was a content creator, I'm saying, look, charge for some of your content. You don't have to charge for all of it, but put yourself in a position for people to support you. Because even when you look at video game streamers like Kai Cenat doesn't offer any exclusive content. The money that he's made for streaming on Twitch are people that just want to see him win. They just want to support him. So he's not even giving exclusive content, but he put himself in the position to receive love and affection and monetary donations from people that believe in what he does by the content he provides. And most of us don't do that. And these platforms don't typically offer that to all their users. And so for me, it's breaking the cycle of your content has value. Don't be afraid to ask for it, because one subscriber leads to two leads to four leads to 8, and so on and so forth. And before you know it, you built a sustainable business that allows yourself to kind of feed yourself and not become reliant on algorithms and brand deals and sponsorships. And you own yourself, you own your business, and you own your legacy. And that's what I really want. That's true disruption, where YouTube could say, hey, we're changing our ad model tomorrow. We're no longer doing that. Or Instagram is no longer doing bonus reels and all that kind of stuff. And you were paying your mortgage off bonus reels, and now they took it away. Yeah. No, I have a subscriber base. They pay me month over month. I can count on them. It goes up, it goes down, it fluctuates, but I can still build and scale my business based off that. And that's the importance of what I think Fanbase represents, and why every single person should understand and download Fanbase and say, look, this is where I can build a subscriber home to monetize and scale my business, and I own my audience.
Correct. I think another way to look at that too as well, and correct me on this perspective, you can have a profile, some kind of profile of millions of people following them, but when it comes to actually, monetizing that following, there's very little conversion to sales. Where somebody can have a smaller following, but that's a tight community, and they launch something and they get a lot more sales than a person has millions of followers. So
look,
right?
I know TikTokers with 13 million followers that are broke. I know podcasters that have 35,000 subscribers that are making $250,000 a month, and you've never heard of them, because they're deciding to monetize their content. Yeah. And so that's what I mean by social rehab. We're so addicted to the likes and the views, because and with respect, it is a pathway to financial gain. Mm-hmm. I become famous, then I become a commodity. Brands pay me to promote their products based off my fame, and that leads to so on and so forth and other opportunities. But for 99.9% of creators, it doesn't wind up that way. They get burnt out, they get exhausted, they doubt themselves, they don't think they have what it takes. And I don't want people to come into Fanbase feeling that way, that just because they don't have 1 million views or 20 million views on their content, that they are a failure. Because there's a lot of great content creators out there that just want to make content, build community, and have an opportunity to monetize their content without have to jump through all these hoops. And so that's what I want to provide. I hate creator burnout. I've seen a lot of young people over the last few years have really just lost faith in what they're able to do. And they're like, man, and they give up. And that's because if it's not popping for them, if they're not trending and they don't get millions of views, they feel like they're not valuable. And that's not what gives you your value. You're valuable with or without the views. You just got to put yourself in a position for people to appreciate that. And that's just funneling people, letting people know where you are and being visible as you can. And I think that's how you use social media, is you market and promote, your content in a way that people can find a place to pay you and bring people more. So and I say this about OnlyFans. OnlyFans, no one has ever blown up off OnlyFans. I call them eat what you kill sites. That means the only people that you get on OnlyFans are the people that you bring there. If you never put link in bio, no one would ever find you on OnlyFans. Mm-hmm. So when you hear somebody blowing up on OnlyFans, that's because you find out how much money they made from funneling people from platforms like Instagram and TikTok and Twitter over to their platform. And all of us have to do that. We're all content creators. right? I know that when we started this conversation, you mentioned something about content creators, and I was like, the truth is that everyone is a content creator, right? If you are going back and forth within the comments on somebody's page, you're a content creator. If you're in the DMs sending stuff over to your friends in your group chats, you're a content creator, right? And so that's the thing that I think people gotta understand. A content creator is not just the person that spends a lot of money editing their videos. A content creator is someone that you're the one that puts the funny joke in the chat that gets 10,000, likes and everybody loves and is laughing over and screenshotting, because that keeps people on the platform. It allows them to run more ads through the content, and you're contributing to that ecosystem. You don't think you are, but you are. And that's the importance that everybody's a content creator. And so when you come to Fanbase, I define a business as the ability to receive income for a product or service you provide. So the fact that when you download Fanbase, there's a button on there that someone can subscribe to you, and anywhere on the platform, including DMs, on comments, in chat rooms, and on all the content, people can tip you. By default, every single person on Fanbase is a business just by downloading the app and making a profile.
Dude, I love it, man. I stinking love it. As you wrap up, what do you think people need to take advantage of here? This current administration, President Trump said this is the beginning of a golden era. Now, I was saying is, if you want to make America great again, you got to make you great. And forget what goes on in the White House. You got to make sure what's going on in your house. So how can people take advantage of what potentially might be happening in the next 4 years? What will be critical for them to have entrepreneurial success, success in their endeavors?
I mean, I'm going to be a little cynical, but whatever you see the top guys doing, I would do. If they're investing in crypto, what crypto are y'all investing in? I'm investing in that. Because they're going to make the rules win in their favor. So if they're highlighting these 5 coins that the U.S. government is about to get behind, if it's Doge and Ripple and all this XRP, then I'm like, let me go buy some Doge, let me go buy some XRP, because it's going to win. Because if the government is behind it, right? If they're the ones that are championing this stuff, there's something in there that says, okay, this is going to work. So I know people jumped on Trump coin.
I was about to say it's $36 now. It went from 80.
Yeah, and I had one of my friends. He was like,
$33. Yep.
I made like $8,000 off Trump coin. I'm like, do it. Like, no shade. Look, y'all can hate Trump as much as you want to, but if there's an opportunity to flip it, do it. But I think we have to pay attention to investing. I know that everything isn't going to be get rich quick, but we have to take the opportunity to think about more aggressive ways to invest, because I think the old way of putting money into an account, you can't save your way to wealth.
Yeah. Yep.
You got to invest, right? You got to do things like that. You got to put money in places like that. So investing in businesses and stocks, I put money in Nvidia. I didn't even think about it. And those are the things that I'm not going to think about. Nvidia is a 10, 20 year play for me. It's like, okay, 20 years from now, Nvidia will be worth this amount of money and I'll use it for that. So that's what I think about, is just being ahead and think about ways to use AI to make that access easier. I'm seeing people use AI to even start to figure out how they're going to invest. And that's extremely important. So I would not balk on that. And then, like I said, and then think about companies, look at equity crowdfunding. There are ways that you can invest in companies like Fanbase. There are plenty of other startups on equity crowdfunding sites like Start Engine and stuff like that. I would love everybody to invest in Fanbase, but there's also other things that people can invest into and have equity in these early stage companies.
Love it. That being said, guys, make sure we're putting all the links here at the bottom. Make sure you follow Isaac Hayes III. Make sure you download and create a profile on the Fanbase account. I've done it, and looking forward to seeing many of you. Let's connect on there too as well. So that being said, if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe, hit like, drop your biggest takeaway from this conversation. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Till we meet again. Continue to live smart, continue to love smart, and be money smart today.